Let's dive into one of the great ironies of history. We're going to talk about how an empire's biggest, most incredible military victory was the very thing that led to its own spectacular collapse. So, here's the big question for today. How did the Neo-Assyrian Empire, basically the most feared army of its time, manage to conquer Egypt, the most legendary land in the ancient world? And, more importantly, why was that amazing achievement actually a death sentence? Okay, to really get this, you first have to picture the scene. You've got these two ancient superpowers, the biggest kids on the block, and they are heading right for each other. It's a total collision course. And these two contenders couldn't be more different. On one side, you have the Neo-Assyrian Empire. Think of them as a brutal, incredibly efficient military machine. They were masters of siege warfare and had a stranglehold on the entire Levant. Then, on the other side, you got Egypt. A place with this immense history, incredible cultural power, and at this point, it's being ruled by the Kushite pharaohs from the south. And here's the key. Egypt wasn't just sitting back. Oh no. It was actively poking the bear, encouraging Assyria's other subjects to rise up and rebel. And that brings us to the Assyrian king, Esarhaddon. For this guy, taking on Egypt wasn't just about strategy or expanding the empire, it was deeply personal. So Esarhaddon's obsession plays out into two very different invasions. The first time in 673 BCE was a complete and utter disaster. Pharaoh Taharka's army just crushed them, a really rare, embarrassing defeat for the Assyrians. But Esarhaddon, he wasn't going to let that stand. 2 years later, he's back. Only this time, he takes no chances. He's got a bigger army, he's moving slower, and he is determined not to fail again. And the result? Well, it's chilling, especially when you read Esarhaddon's own words from his victory monument. He didn't just conquer Memphis, the capital of Egypt, he completely obliterated it. He says it took him half a day. He threw everything he had at it: mines, tunnels, assaults. The brutality was the whole point. But he wasn't done. The psychological warfare was just as important. He puts up this huge stone monument, a victory stele. And what does it show? It shows the pharaoh's own son, Ushankaru, on his knees with a rope tied around his neck. This was pure propaganda, meant to show the entire world that Assyria could humiliate anyone, even the son of a living god. But here's the thing, for all that violence, the job still wasn't done. Pharaoh Taharka actually got away. He fled south to his homeland in Kush, and from there, he started stirring up new revolts. He even managed to take back Memphis. Well, Esarhaddon was furious. He gathers his army to march again, but on the way, he gets sick and dies. So this whole Egypt problem lands right in the lap of his son, the famous Ashurbanipal. And if you thought his dad was obsessed with Egypt, well, Ashurbanipal was just plain furious. Now, Taharka does eventually die, but his successor, a guy named Tantamani, he just picks up right where Taharka left off. He sweeps up from the south and takes back all of Egypt. And in the fighting, he kills Necho I, the puppet king the Assyrians had put on the throne. For Ashurbanipal, that was the absolute last straw. So, in 663 BCE, Ashurbanipal decides, this is it, we're ending this, for good. He unleashes the entire, overwhelming power of the Assyrian Empire. This wasn't just about winning a war anymore. This was about punishment on a scale the ancient world had just never seen before. And his main target? The ancient, holy city of Thebes. This was the cultural and religious heart of southern Egypt. In his own records, Ashurbanipal boasts about what he did. He looted everything: silver, gold, gems, and in the ultimate display of power, he ripped 2 massive, shining obelisks right out of the ground and dragged them all the way back home to Assyria. I mean, the sack of Thebes was so unbelievably shocking, it sent ripples across the entire ancient world. It was such a big deal that it's even mentioned right here in the Bible, in the book of Nahum, as a warning about how even the greatest city on earth can fall. It was an event that absolutely defined the era. And with that one brutal act, the Neo-Assyrian Empire had finally reached its absolute, undeniable peak. They were on top of the world. Sure, the empire was bigger than it had ever been, but it was more than just land. By conquering Egypt, Assyria had done the unthinkable. They had defeated the oldest, most revered civilization in their world. It was the ultimate power move, the final proof that they were number one. And if you want to get a sense of the scale of this victory, Just think about this number. Those two obelisks from Thebes, the ones covered in electrum, that gold and silver mix, they weighed an estimated 75.5 tons. Can you imagine the sheer effort it took just to haul that treasure home? It was just a mind-boggling display of power. But, and this is where our whole story turns, at the very moment of their greatest triumph, the seeds of Assyria's own destruction had already been planted. The bill for all that ambition was about to come due.
See, here's the problem. Actually, holding on to Egypt was a complete nightmare. The empire was stretched way too thin, just bleeding soldiers and money to control this faraway, constantly rebelling province. And while all eyes were on Egypt, the Assyrian heartland was left vulnerable. This created a power vacuum, and rivals back home started fighting each other in bitter civil wars, tearing the empire apart from the inside out.
And now for the final perfect irony. Remember that puppet king the Assyrians installed? Well, his son, Psemtik I, sees exactly what's happening. He sees Assyria tearing itself apart, and he makes his move. He hires his own army of mercenaries, kicks the Assyrian soldiers out, and declares Egypt independent. The very dynasty they created to control Egypt is the one that sets it free. Just look at this timeline. It shows how incredibly fast everything fell apart. In 663 BCE, Assyria is at its absolute peak. Not even 10 years later, Egypt is gone. Then Babylon, their most important territory, revolts. And by 609 BCE, less than 60 years after that incredible victory at Thebes, the Neo-Assyrian Empire, the most feared power on earth, was just gone, wiped off the map. Which leaves us with this one last big question. By grabbing for its ultimate prize, Assyria sealed its own fate. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? For any empire, in any time in history, is that moment of greatest ambition also the moment you start the countdown to your own collapse?